afternoon, everyone. My name is Gary Stromandinoli, and I work for L&L Nursery Supply. I started working in garden centers in 1965, so I've been around a long time. Kind of done it all. I've worked managed nurseries. I've worked at the end of a shovel, and sold hard goods, which is what you see here, wholesale as well as plant material wholesale. I currently work for L&L Nursery Supply, and L&L Nursery Supply supplies all the hard goods that you see in waters and other garden centers throughout the West, actually. L&L supplies anywhere from the eastern border of New Mexico straight up to the border of Canada, all the way to Alaska and into Hawaii. So it's a pretty good sized company. We've got 2 warehouses. We've got one in San Bernardino and we have one up in Fife, Washington. So we supply primarily independent nurseries. And start out with the types of insecticides that we use. There's actually 3 different categories of insecticides. You've got contact, you've got systemic, and you've got a smothering or an oil type of insecticide. So these are some examples here, and basically, depending on whether you want to stay organic or whether you want to go synthetic, there's insecticides that cover just about any usage. A lot of people like to stay with really safe insecticides. When I started out, we had the chlordane and the eldrin and all the stuff that lasts forever when you applied it to the ground. Well, now those aren't available any longer. They deem them too dangerous for human use. So the organics are coming more and more on board, and people have a misconception that organics are totally safe. The organic insecticide that I sold that was probably the most dangerous of anything I've ever sold was in a little 2-ounce bottle, sold to the public. It was called nicotine sulfate, blackleaf 40. It's the only insecticide I've ever sold that had a skull and crossbones in it. And it was sold to the public. You buy it over the shelf, and it was organic. So when people say organics are safe, not always. They can be just as dangerous as the synthetics. Now, most of the organics are made so that they are a smothering type, which would be an oil type of insecticide, or an insecticide that does not last. It basically is a contact spray, so you spray it on the insect dies, it's a nerve toxin, and so you see immediate results. A good example of that would be a product called pyrethrin. So if you see pyrethrin as far as an insecticide main ingredient, it's a nerve toxin, it kills immediately, but it has no residual, it doesn't last. A lot of times pyrethrin is combined with other insecticide, generally an oil type of spray. So pyrethrin will work as a nerve toxin, and then the oil that's used with it will work as it smothers the insect as well. So it has kind of a dual action. A product called triple action is one that does this. It's a pyrethrin and an oil called neem, and the combination of the two is going to give you a little lasting coverage. It's going to kill insects for up to 2 weeks generally. So the oil is going to kill, it's going to smother the insect egg or the insect that's there. The pyrethrin is going to work as a nerve toxin right away, and then the neem oil, which is also organic. Neem comes from the neem tree in Africa. The neem oil actually does the smothering, but has a repellent action as well. It changes the odor of the plant. So if the plant, say an insect is prone to come to a certain species of plant, they won't recognize it because of the odor of the neem oil. So it's very effective. It's probably the top seller that we carry now. So it's called triple action. It's a neem pyrethrin combination. Pyrethrin is actually an extract from the African chrysanthemum plant. So both of them are plant-based. So it's really kind of a neat product. And this is the kind of thing that we're going towards in the future, is more of an organic, safe product that has some lasting ability, but also has an immediate kill. There's other products such as the multi-purpose insecticide. It's a pyrethrin or permethrin, I'm sorry. This one's a permethrin, which is a synthetic pyrethrin. The permethrin has the ability of lasting about 2 weeks. Again, it has an instant kill, then also has residual. This is a product that is manufactured. It's not an organic, but it works like the organic. So it's a very good product. Oil, all-season oil. If you want to stay safe, this is, again, not organic, but it smothers the insect and smothers any eggs that may come on in the future. And it works very, very well as far as preventing any hatch outs. So you've got mites, thrips, aphids, things like that. It'll smother any insect egg so that it doesn't hatch out in the future. This is, again, not organic. The definition of organic is that it had to be alive at one time. I guess technically oil comes from something that was alive at one time, but these are not considered organic. They're a natural product. Okay. Captain Jack's, this one is a imidacloprid. Imidacloprid is a product that came out several years ago, probably 20 years ago or so. The imidacloprid is what we call systemic. So the systemic you put into the ground, the plant takes it up, basically poisons the foliage of that plant, so when an insect chews on that plant or ingests any of it, it kills the insect. Now this will last, depending on the concentration that you use, this is going to last 3 to 4 weeks generally. It's going to kill anything that should be feeding on that plant. You don't have the spray in the air that you would normally with an insecticide. You apply it to the root system, it takes it up through the system, and kills that way. Yes?
Are any of those safe to be used around pets?
Basically, most of them are. Anytime an insecticide is dry, you're in pretty good shape. You're not going to be killing. The question is that they are safe around pets. Okay? If you use the common name for this product is merit. If you use merit, it goes into the soil, goes into the foliage, unless they ingest a lot of it. I mean, an extreme amount of foliage, it's not going to be injurious to pets. Okay, of course, the oils won't be. Permethrin and pyrethrin won't be. They all have cautions on them, just in case there is a problem. They cover themselves, but primarily they're not injurious to animals. Yeah. So systemic is the next one. Like I say, this is the imidacloprid is a systemic. Another type of insecticide, that one goes into the ground or into the foliage. It can be used as a foliar application as well, but soil is usually what you use it for. It came out a number of years ago. Bayer is probably the first one to put it in a retail package. And actually it's a product that in the future, probably in the next 2 or 3 years, will no longer be available. It's one of those things that the EPA is kind of looking at sideways and saying, well, maybe this isn't the best product on the market for retail usage. So it's one of those things that lasts a long time, and they just, it's one of those that they're thinking that may be more injurious to wildlife, say water table, things like that, fish especially. So a lot of parts of the country have problems with high water tables leaching into rivers and streams, and this one they deem not the safest for that. Yes?
What happens if you apply some of these products to plants, maybe some artificial weeds and rabbits eat the plants?
Okay, the question is, if rabbits eat the plants, is it a problem for them? Again, they'd have to ingest so much of it that probably would not be harmful initially. But if they continue to eat that plant, especially something that's got a systemic insecticide on it, it may sicken them, but I doubt that it would kill them. Yeah. Any other questions on that? Okay, oil, we kind of covered a little bit, but your oils, your all-season oil is the one that they sell here. All-season oil, it is a smothering type of insecticide, so it doesn't have a poisonous kill to it. It smothers the insect and it smothers the eggs. And especially in the fall and springtime, it's extremely important to use an oil spray We call it winterizing when you use it this time of year. It kills any of the overwintering insects, and so in the springtime you don't have the problem with the aphids, the thrips, and the mites that you normally would, especially on roses first thing in the spring as they come out. So using a oil spray in the fall and early spring prevents a lot of problems when it comes into the new foliage. Yes?
And how do you apply that, or where do you apply it to? The plant, or do you have to have it see
Yeah.
insects?
Okay, where do we apply it? We apply it to the foliage itself. Especially on plants that are deciduous, they drop their foliage in the fall. It's really important to use it on, it can be used on fruit trees, flowering like roses, any shrubs, anything that's deciduous, especially going into the fall. You want to winterize those plants. One of the ways you winterize is by using an oil spray.
Trees?
Trees also. The trees, a lot of times in the springtime, trees will get an aphid that affects them, especially if it's an ash tree. Ash trees get aphids in the springtime, and maples and things like that. So oil is very important. Yes?
I've been noticing a late flush of aphids in my garden. I'm surprised. I expect them in the spring, but not in the autumn.
Yeah. Aphids this time of year. Aphids can come just about any time of year when it's warm. Normally not during the hottest part of the summer, but in the springtime there's a flush of aphids, then we can get it in the fall again.
It's just as my roses are doing their autumn.
Right. Yeah, I've noticed that also on my roses.
Okay.
And aphids are tiny little insects, can be green, can be brown, generally on the stem of the plant towards the rose, on roses.
Right.
But can be anywhere on the plant. Usually the most succulent part of the plant is where the aphids hit.
So the neem oil would be a good
Neem would be
application.
very good, yeah. Neem will take care of those, they'll cover it. Aphids are very easy to kill, it's just they come in such numbers and they seem to happen overnight. You know, so spray as soon as you see them. If they're in huge numbers, they can suck a lot of that nutrient or the sap from the plant and deform the plant or kill that portion of the branch if they get in huge numbers. Yes?
Can you say the name of that oil again that you put on
The oil?
the fall and in the spring?
Yeah, the oil that, it's the all-season oil is the ones that you want to use. And it's a very light oil. Up in this part of the country, we can use it year-round. So we can use it on anything year-round. In summertime, in the hotter locations like Phoenix, for instance, you can't use the oil in the summertime. It's too hot for it and will burn. Even up here, when it gets in the upper 90s, it's a little bit questionable. But if you use it in the early morning or late evening, you're pretty safe on using the oils. Again, a lot of people like to use it in place of an insecticide. They don't like to use insecticides. So the oils will work quite well. And again, that's a smothering type, so the insect has to be present for it to work. Also works on some of the fungus because it smothers the, like mildew, for instance, powdery mildew. It keeps that from spreading. It basically locks it onto the foliage that's there and won't spread. So the oil does many different things. And you'll see oil in a lot of different insecticides as far as carriers. So it's not in the same quantity, but it kind of does the same thing. That's what triple action also is very good for that. Because triple action smothers that fungus. Works on black spot, powdery mildew, a lot of different other types of diseases and fungus. So it works very well. Any other questions on that? Okay. There are some insecticides, like I say, systemic. The one tree and shrub spray. Did I bring any up? There's a tree and shrub spray that we carry. That is a drench also. That's a systemic. And if you have big trees especially, it's very difficult to spray into those big trees. So using a systemic insecticide in the soil around that tree will get that insecticide way up into the tree and be very effective. There's some implants called ace caps as well. Ace caps you actually drill into the tree itself. It's a little capsule. It's got orthene in it. You drill it so it's just below the cambium or the bark of the tree. Depending on the size of the tree, you're going to use anywhere from 4 to 10 per tree. And that sap takes it up into the tree and will last about one season. So that's another option as far as an insecticide. If you say you have the tree is around, say, a blacktopped area, concrete, something where you can't get to the root system, using the ace caps really helps. They've tested it for bark beetle, and they haven't had any they really haven't released any results on it, but it seems to work fairly well. The biggest thing on bark beetle is making sure that the tree is well hydrated. The tree actually has, the sap system is under pressure on the inside of the tree. So if a tree is healthy, it pushes that bark beetle out as it tries to bore into the tree. If the tree is not hydrated well, like we had a few years ago with our drought, that tree was suffering. There wasn't enough pressure on the inside to push that bore out, and they went in, and that's when they did all the damage on the trees. On a bark beetle, you usually don't see the damage for a year or two, especially on big pine trees. And then all of a sudden the tree starts dying, and you can't figure out what's wrong with it. And the bark beetles is a lot of times the culprit on that. So there are different ways to handle it, but normally a systemic type insecticide is the best way on a tree that large. Okay. They also get aphids as well, so that helps on aphids. If you look at your pine trees in springtime, you see all this sap kind of coming down, or the leaves almost look like they're shellacked. That's an aphid that's hitting your pine trees. And normally they won't damage a huge pine tree, they just make a mess underneath the trees. They slow the growth down somewhat, so systemic insecticide works very well on those. Okay, any questions on those? Mites, aphids, like I say, the mite and thrips. Thrips in the springtime hit roses especially. That's the one you really notice it. Where the rose will not totally form properly. It starts coming out and then it doesn't open. It's generally a thrip in the springtime. They hit early spring. They tend to go away in the summertime. But the thrip will deform they actually suck the juice out of the cell of the leaf and deforms it so it doesn't open properly. You'll also see this on some foliage where, in fruit trees and other types of trees, where the leaf will be curled somewhat, or part of the leaf is deformed so that it doesn't open properly. That's generally a thrip. Thrip are very, very tiny, usually almost in a clear in color, or just an opaque, and they hit springtime early, just as that foliage is coming out. They don't kill the tree or shrub, they just deform that foliage. So it's not anything that's real harmful to the plant. The plant doesn't look good. It looks like it's sick, but it's not. It's the thrip. But if you use the oil spray in the fall, early spring, that's going to help prevent some of that.
What's the thrip life cycle? Do they live in the soil?
The thrips, they don't live in the soil, no. No, what they do, it's a springtime event. Generally hit early spring. They don't like the heat, so as it gets hotter, the thrips will disappear.
Because I find on gladiola
Yeah,
really bad.
again, usually it's springtime, early, before the hot summer hits. Yeah, the thrips on gladiolas and other types of plants. So, yeah, it's one of those things that we just put up with. You can spray for them. Generally, by the time you see the problem, the thrip's already gone. It's already done the damage. So try to prevent it before it happens. Again, using oils and using insecticides prior to the thrip hitting certainly helps. There's another insecticide that came on the market a few years ago. It's called spinosad, or spinosad, whichever. I've heard it pronounced both ways. And it's actually a bacteria. And it's very safe. It's used in a lot of different types of insecticides now. It was found, I've heard several different stories as far as how it was discovered, but it tends to go back to some piles of mash that was used for producing liquor. And these piles of mash didn't have the insect in them, like roaches or ants or anything else that you would normally find in a big old pile of, rotting product. And they found this bacteria in there that was killing the insects. And that was the spinosad. And spinosad works almost as a systemic, so it will go into the plant. You'll see it on some of the boar sprays that you buy. It's also being combined a lot with other insecticides now. In fact, it's being combined with iron phosphide for use on snail and slug control. So it's one of those things the insect has to ingest, so you'll see some damage on their plants. But once they ingest it, it basically fills their gut up and starts growing so that they think they're full, and they basically starve to death. It doesn't take long for an insect. So it's very effective. It is not very toxic to humans or bees or anything else. It tends to be a very safe product. And you see that more and more on different labels and different products. And it's just another one of those products that's coming out that is safer than the old-fashioned synthetic products. This actually is one of the products. This is an ant killer. Everybody's had ant problems this year. I live in Prescott and had a terrible problem with ants. The spinosad in this product, one of the things about ants is that the worker ants will go out and get the bait or the food. They'll bring it back to the nest, to their mound. The worker ants will ingest some of it. If they don't die within, say, a 24-hour period, then the queen will eat the food. So some of these insecticides that are out there that kill ants almost immediately aren't as effective because the queen will not eat that bait because the workers die. And that would wipe out the whole anthill if the queen was to eat that. So spinosad doesn't work that way. Spinosad takes 2 to 3 days for that worker ant to be dead, to kill a worker ant. So in the meantime, the queen thinks, well, gee, they ate it, they're still alive, so it must be okay. And she ingests it and then kills her. So when you apply this, you apply it not directly on the mound, you apply it kind of within a couple feet of the mound. Worker ants come out and get it, they take it down into their hill, and then the queen eats it after a couple days and it kills the whole hill out. So it's very effective. There's another product in the market called Amdro. Amdro kills very quickly. A lot of people have used Amdro in the past. It works well. It doesn't always kill the queen though. The queen just moves to another place. And you see another mound down, several feet away. So we like spinosad in this product. It's been out for a long time, relatively safe. It's not a strict poison like Amdro is, and works really well. Okay, any questions on that? No? Okay, another thing that has been a problem this year is grubs. Have any of you had grub problems? Okay.
How would you know?
Grubs feed on the root systems of plant material. So far, I've done a lot of research on organic kills for grubs and really haven't found much that is recommended, especially in vegetable gardens. The grub killer we have here, Babanite, works well. Timing is crucial on killing your grubs. Generally in the springtime is when the larva is active, so you want to use the grub killer in the springtime as the grubs are just coming out of, their hatchlings, I guess you could call it. So early spring into early summer is the best time to use, just as the soil's warming up before the summertime. Because as they get mature and they hatch out, they become their beetle, then it's no longer effective. So you want to get them in the ground. Most of the way this grub killer, this is a imidacloprid, there's several different on the market. They generally will work by stopping the maturity of the grub itself. So it's not going to kill the grub and run away. It stops it from maturing so that it no longer doesn't turn into this beetle that produces more grubs. Again, when it comes to vegetable gardens, it's pretty difficult to control grubs. But when you work your garden up, you'll see them. Remove the grubs as you can and they don't become a real big problem. If you allow them to persist, then over the years, it's going to become more and more of a problem. Again, grubs feed on the root system of plants, generally young plants, such as bedding plants, flowers, vegetables, things like that you plant. And if you haven't seen a grub before, there's a picture on the front of there, but it's It's kind of rolled up. It can be gray, white, or brown in color. The larger they get, the harder they are to kill. So grubs have been from the springtime, imidacloprid, either in the liquid or in the granule, works well. And again, there's other products in the market that work as a growth retardant, basically. Okay? Yes?
Is that 8 granule product safe to use in vegetable gardens?
It's not listed for vegetables, no. No, I don't know of any grub killer that currently is listed for vegetables. It's one of the problems. They just the way that the grub killer is, the imidacloprid, or imidacloprid can be used in some forms in gardens. And Bayer has a product that you can use in gardens and in vegetable gardens and fruit trees. This one is not labeled for that.
8 granules.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, you can use, timing is crucial on this as well. And a lot of these insecticides are labeled for edibles, but you have to be careful as far as when, how late you apply it. If you apply it early spring, before they produce fruit, then you're okay. Or when the fruit is very small. As that fruit matures, you want to be careful as far as using insecticides around the base of fruit trees and vegetables. So use it for very, very early spring. Yes. Anything else? Yes?
Do you dig that into the soil or just spread it around?
This grub killer, use it as far as a topical application, so you put it on the top and you water it in, but you have to water it in very well. You want to get it down into the ground a couple of 3 inches, so you want to make sure it's a good deep water, not just a sprinkling. Yeah, this is the same on anything that's a systemic. You want to make sure you really drench that after you apply it. Okay? Okay, anybody have problems with gophers this year?
Yeah.
Okay. Gophers are hard. There's so many different things on the market for gophers. A lot of people don't want to use poisons. They don't want to kill the gopher. And poisons are hit and miss on gophers. The one thing when you apply a gopher killer, like such as the gopher dye or any of the ones that are on the market, you have to make sure that the applicator that you use, whether it be a spoon or whatever it is, that you don't touch it with your fingers. They can smell the oil from a human on the applicator and they won't go towards that bait. So make sure that you use something, your gloves or something on that applicator so that they don't have the odor of the human oil on the fingertips. Making sure that you trace down each of their holes and apply it. Or use a probe. Ken sells probes here where you put the gopher bait in, the probe goes down into the tunnel, and you release the bait that way instead of putting it at the front or the end of the tunnels. It seems to be a little more effective. But gophers are smart. They push it right out if they see that it's something that they don't want or is dangerous to them. Of course, there's traps. Traps have been on the market for years. There's all different types of traps. So again, the same thing. If you set a trap, make sure you use gloves or something so that you don't have that odor on the trap, because they can smell it. Years ago, when I first moved to Prescott 22 years ago, there used to be a vegetable grower out in Chino Valley. And he got to the point where he finally had to stop growing vegetables because the gophers had just decimated his garden as well as the roads going into his property to the point where he could barely drive into his property. It was that bad. So they can become very voracious. They dig like crazy. You can cover the hole up, try to kill them. You can try to flush them out, and they seem to survive almost anything. There's gopher shields, so if you're planting new plants, this is a wire basket basically you put down in the hole around the plants that you're planting. It comes in 3 different sizes. This protects the roots from the gopher eating and killing the plant. It's very effective. Comes into up to a 15-gallon size, so it's a pretty good size net and works pretty well. So this is one way to prevent them. It's not a poison, it's not going to kill them, but it prevents them from eating the roots of the new plant. and they feed on the root system. There's other ones, there's all types of preventatives. Castor oil seems to be one of the things that will scare them away. They don't like it. There's repellents that you use that you start on one side of the yard, and every few days you apply it a little further into the yard until you finally force them out of the yard. So they go to your neighbor's house, basically, is what they do. So, but, it's a humane way to do it, and you have to continue using it, and generally that's castor oil. They don't like the smell of it, and it's a repellent more than anything else. It doesn't kill them, it just repels them from being in that area. Yes?
Are there vegetables? What do gophers eat? What do they go for? What kind of plant?
Gophers eat almost any type of root system, so it could be vegetables, flowers, trees, shrubs. They're not picky, just anything. Yeah, as long as it's a succulent root, they'll eat it. And they can have very extensive tunnels. They can be all over your yard. And it
So you
seems,
typically go into like a residential yard as opposed to, outside the property?
yeah, the question is, do they go primarily to residential areas versus staying out in the open? Gophers will go where there's food for them. So generally, if you have trees and shrubs and flowers and vegetables, that's a gourmet to them, gourmet dinner, and that's where they go. So they tend to be more into a residential area. They don't like rocky areas because that's hard to dig in. But if it's a decent soil, that's where they're going to go, and they're going to go after that root system of almost any type of plant. There is one called gopher purge. It's a plant that you can buy. I think Ken sells it here. And gopher purge, they don't like that particular plant. The plant does get out of hand if you don't take care of it. I mean, it seeds readily. It's not an unattractive plant, but it doesn't flower. But if you have a gopher problem and you can plant gopher purge, they won't eat the roots on that plant, and it tends to repel them. So, yeah, if you have a rocky ground, it's not as bad, but if you have a fairly decent soil, they're going to go through it.
You
Yes.
said castor oil. How do you use that oil?
Well, the castor oil, a lot of manufacturers put it out in a granular form, so you can use it on top of. Yeah, you can use it on top of the soil, and like I say, just kind of keep moving them from one side of the yard to the other to get them out. Yeah. So, like I say, there's nothing foolproof for gophers. People fight them all their lives in their particular property. It's wildlife. We're on their turf, so poisons, traps, those work, but repellents also work pretty well. Okay. Any other questions on that?
So how deep do gophers go?
Gophers don't go very deep. Most of them are, probably within a foot to no more than 2 feet in depth. They're fairly shallow. Normally you don't see them during the day. Yeah, most people don't ever see them, they just see the tunnels, their exit and entrance holes. If you do put a poison down, make sure that you cover wherever you put it in. Say with a piece of cardboard and put something on top of it, so when they get to the end of that tunnel, they stop, and that's where the poison is, and they can't go through. So that's the most effective way if you just leave that tunnel open, they'll just push it aside and go right on through. So put cardboard, a box, something to cover that hole up so they don't just go right past it. Anything else? Any other questions?
Does
Yes.
that pertain to squirrels and chipmunks also?
Squirrels and chipmunks, they're a little different.
Okay, I know.
They're much smarter than a gopher and much more difficult to control. Yeah, they
Put some dry cement in and then they just come back from the cement.
yeah, squirrels and gophers squirrels and are very difficult to control. There's some things that are, again, repellents seem to work fairly well, so you can use repellents. There's just a general animal repellent, animal stopper. They're basically scent repellents that you can use. These tend to be grains, so So if they're eating in the area, you can use a grain, it'll kill them. You know, if that doesn't bother you. Or you can trap them, you can use live traps. Yeah, you can use live traps a lot of times in Humane Society and something like
They're
that.
pretty smart.
Yeah.
But I didn't think about wearing gloves when I put the bait in, so that might have been why they don't go in.
Right. Yeah, they're pretty tough to get rid of once they start. Yes.
One of the problems with the poisons, though, on the rodents is that it can kill our raptor population. And the raptors are great for control of rodents, too.
Yeah, she made a comment that secondary kill with the poisons for raptors and other animals, cats, dogs, whatever. That's one of the problems with using a poison. It does have a secondary kill. There is another one coming out in the market fairly soon that it's not supposed to have much of a secondary kill at all. It's supposed to be fairly safe. There was one years ago that was out that I used to sell tons of to the ranchers and farmers that basically raised the calcium level on rodents and killed them that way, and there was no secondary kill because they're the only ones that are really prone to that type of calcium death, basically. They had heart attacks. But most of them kill by basically they bleed to death internally. So they'll go to a water source once they've been poisoned. And once they get to that water source, then they die around that water source because they're so thirsty they have to drink. So they don't necessarily die right where you poison them. It's off to another point. But you're right, there is secondary kill on most of these poisons.
That's a big concern.
Yeah. And I think that's why so many of these repellents are more and more, and traps are becoming more and more popular. It's simply because of that. That you don't want that secondary poison. Even household cats will get a hold of them, and there's a lot of cats just wandering free. So you want to be sure that, if you're going to use it, make sure that you use it and watch for the sickened animals or dead ones. Pick them up. Yes.
In our area, we have a lot of snakes. We have a lot of gophers on our property too. That's what we call them. But I've heard that the snakes use the same holes to go in and get gophers. But if they the good snakes kill the rattlesnakes too, which we have a few of. And if they have a gopher, they get that poison in their gopher.
Yeah, she was making a comment that snakes in her area kill rodents, and if the rodent has been poisoned, then it can kill the snake. Again, a secondary poisoning. Yeah, and there are snake repellents, by the way, if you have a problem with snakes.
No, the good snakes, I don't.
Yeah,
that doesn't bother me.
Rattlesnakes,
they do
things
kill the
like that.
rattlesnake.
Yeah, if you have a problem with snakes that you don't want in your yard, there are repellents now that do repel the snakes without hurting them. So,
Can you
yes.
say what is the best repellent for squirrels? They're killing they're eating all the fruit on my trees. I'm not getting anything. Is there one that's better than the other?
No, I don't think so.
Well, they don't work.
The repellents, there's all kinds of repellents in the market. You see a few here. There's literally a lot of repellents. And if you try one and it works, great, but it may not work the next time. So it's always one of those things where you have to keep using different brands. Most of the brands will use a mixture of herbs as far as the scent repellent. Some of them use castor oil, but a lot of them use different types of herbs that they don't like the smell of. And that's becoming more and more popular. Again, it's because there is no kill, there's no odor. In fact, most of them almost smell like mint. So they're pleasant to work with, but the animals don't like them. Yes?
Will the repellents keep rats away?
I doubt it on rats. Question was, will it keep rats away, repellents? I don't think so. Again, there's a lot of different ways to control rats. There's rat poisons, of course. There's traps. There's electronic traps that you use now. if you reduce the populations, the big thing is you don't want the populations to grow too much out of hand. So there's sticky traps. In fact, one of our suppliers was telling us about a sticky trap. A customer wanted to see how many rodents the sticky trap would trap. And generally they're used for one rodent, you throw the trap away and that's it. Well, she was kind of gross, but she was cutting the legs off the rodents and reusing the traps, and she caught over 20 mice. But she proved that they continue to work after a period of time. But sticky traps are one way. Electronic traps, where they go into this trap and it gives them a zap and kills them right away, very instantly. There's the old snap trap. They're still very popular. But,
Tomcat trap.
Yeah, there's again a lot of things on the market. Everybody comes up with a new mouse trap, and there tends to be more and more of them all the time. But that's probably the best way to control them. There's bars now. The government has mandated that anything that's in a poison, a bar, or anything like that has to be encapsulated into a container. It can't just be open, so other animals and children can't get into it. So when you buy a rodent poison anymore, it has to be, even a refill has to be put into that trap or into that container, so that it's not dangerous to small children and to other animals.
I was going to say the live traps work well in that trap, especially with peanut butter. If you only have one or two and you want to move them away, I have one moved in about once a year.
Use the rat trap? Is that what you're using?
The live traps.
Oh, the live traps.
Live traps.
Yeah, the wire live traps.
With peanut butter.
Yeah.
I love it.
Yeah, the live traps tend to work pretty well, and then you release them out into the open.
Right.
Yeah. Now, put a bait in there. There's even baits on the market now that are peanut butter based baits, and you can put that into the trap.
I mean, you'll get them overnight that way.
Yeah. Normally, you don't have a huge population of the
We
squirrel.
just get one at a time.
Yeah.
generally.
Yeah, usually it's just a small population. You can trap them over a matter of a week or so and release them out somewhere else. Don't, that way you don't hurt them. Yeah. Okay? Again, there's a number of repellents in the market. Try them all over a period of time. You're going to have to. There's ones that are specific. So you see squirrel repellents, you'll see dog and cat repellents, you'll see one like this is an animal repellent. They all swear they work. If you talk to any of the manufacturers, we've tested them, they all work. Get them home and some of them work, some don't. So try different ones. Don't be discouraged by not having success the first time. There is a repellent that works on some animals better than this one. Not this one. There is one called Repelzol, which actually has hot pepper in it. It's called hot pepper wax. And if you see that, it's basically a taste repellent, so they have to ingest a little bit of it, or at least try the foliage. And it's a hot pepper that they don't like. So it keeps them from eating the foliage on plant material. So if you have squirrels, for instance, or some other type of rodent that tends to chew either bark or foliage, the hot pepper wax tends to repel them. So they don't come back to that particular plant. Okay? Any questions on that? Yes? Grasshoppers. Grasshoppers are a real problem in some areas of town right now, actually. I live in central Prescott. We don't have any grasshoppers to speak of, just a few. Some parts of this area have a tremendous problem with grasshoppers. Grasshoppers, carbaryl works very well. A product called Seven carbaryl works very well.
What did you say?
Carbaryl, 7.
How do you spell that?
That works for them?
Yeah.
As long as the Nolo?
Yeah, there is a product called Nolobait. Ken sells the Nolobait. Nolobait is a biological control. It's a bacteria. And the Nolobait works by, again, they have to ingest it. So they have to do some damage to the plants before you'll see a kill. Yes, ma'am.
Yeah, do you use copper spray in the fall too?
Copper spray can be
used
used.
in the spring, but it really works well.
Yeah, you can use copper spray any time of the year. Yeah, anytime.
One more quick question. Do you have anything you put on succulents to keep them from freezing here?
No.
Put them in the garage and cover them.
No.
I put them
No,
in my house, but I'm getting tired of
Yeah, actually in the wintertime I haul all my plants that are hanging plants and potted plants into my garage. And that's the only way to save them. Otherwise they will freeze. And even the sprays and anything else that you use, you know, it's going to make a maybe 5-degree difference maybe. But when we get down to, you know, in the teens or less, especially succulents, they're all water. They're going to freeze. Yes. Anything else? Yes, ma'am.
When they sunburn, will they come back?
Generally not. Some of the foliage, you may get some regrowth on some of the foliage, but generally when they burn like that, it's very difficult for them to regrow. Yeah, they're best in kind of a shaded area, protected area, not in the full sun areas. Especially if you have Alberta spruce in a rock yard, for instance, in the middle of your yard. If they get enough air around them and they get a little bit of shade, they're fine. But if they're just out in the middle of that rock in the summertime, that heat is reflecting, you can get some burn.
And then the wind.
Yeah, and the wind, yeah. Yes, ma'am.
Is there anything I should do? I have a blue spruce. Is there anything I should do to protect it from insects?
Well, the blue spruce, again, you can use the implants in it, ace caps for insects. You can use the drenches, tree and shrub drench. So it goes into the foliage. Are you having problems with mites, aphids?
I don't have any problems yet. I'm just very protective of that tree.
Yeah, generally they don't have a big problem. As long as you water them well and keep the gophers away, you're pretty good. In fact, a lot of times, yeah, gophers will chew on the roots. But most of the time on a spruce, blue spruce, even if a limb is damaged and you cut the limb off, you'll get a new shoot coming out of that area. So generally you'll have some regrowth. So blue spruce is pretty foolproof. Check for mites occasionally in the springtime, aphids. So that's about it. They're pretty good here. Not too much problem. Are we officially done?
All right, thank you, Gary.
Thank you.